I remember the day they installed the witch. A fine autumn Wednesday as I recall. The whole town had gathered to watch the spectacle. We had known little excitement before this day. Our people had suffered for many years of cold and hunger. We were far too familiar. The graveyard was strewn with lost beloved, skinny bodies carefully wrapped in white. But the day had an air of hopefulness. Even the preacher was in attendance. There had been some fuss about it in the weeks and months preceding. Protests were eventually quieted. Now the thing was actually happening and most everyone seemed eager to begin. A number of the town convened on the appointed day. They removed her from the small packing crate, assembled her various pieces. I recall the face, arms, and legs so pale and ghastly in the mid-afternoon shade of the mountain. When all the components were finally joined, we resumed our days, though I lingered. The remaining men of the town gathered around her. Some words were spoken in prayer. Then the men began disrobing. There was but one way to activate the witch. This they did with only moderate shame. Forming a line of 13 in number, each in turn set upon the inert naked body with little passion or enthusiasm. But desperation moves men to such things, and it did manage to carry them through the sordid task. When it was finished, the preacher saw her dressed. The clothing they had decided upon was a plain black gown and hat. The town had little money nor spirit for pageantry. Later that afternoon, as her form lay still, the children dared one another to sneak up and pinch her. But none actually got close enough to do so for fear of waking her. They ran and squealed as they were hurried away by the women and herded toward their homes. Just before the ringing of the dusk bells, the witch drew her first creaking breath. The eyes, so dead moments ago, became clear and lively. Scanning her new surroundings without expression. Before taking the first shaky steps towards a hovel the men of the town had erected for her purpose and the women had furnished with objects from their homes, the preacher then went to her and began whispering in low tones. None could overhear. The witch listened closely but did not speak or meet his gaze. When the preacher had finished, he hurried away. I believe he had tears in his eyes, but I may be mistaken. We remember things as we want them to be. That night all the doors of the town were left open. This was agreed upon some time ago. Less a sign of welcome than a reluctant submission, though some folks were less hesitant than others. The first night of a witch, they say, is always the hardest. I've no doubt that the saying is true. Most of the town did not sleep well at all. For myself, I rarely ever did. The first child taken was Margaret and Grace, a girl, as is usual for witches prefer. In the small hours of night, we all heard cries and knew that it had begun. If it was a lesser or greater evil, I do not know. The morning was difficult, but the town showed resolve. The people of these mountains are steadfast as any. The following night 2 more were taken. Most tired eyes remained closed this time. Prayers were held in church daily for grieving parents. Attendance was light but not surprisingly so. By summer's end all children but 2 were gone. It was nearly over. There was no laughter to mark the occasion. On the first day of fall, the preacher approached the witch's shack. He entered and presumably spoke to the witch, and an hour later reappeared. The witch, whom we had not seen since her birthday, was now grotesquely fat, pregnant with murder, swollen to bursting. Cold-eyed, she stood in the doorway, her hair and attire in disarray. She slowly was guided toward the well at the center of town. A crowd of people waited there for her. Hollow-eyed, shiny-skinned men and women rushed forth and fell upon her, clawing at the witch's body, ripping apart the dark and stained garments, then pulling the soft pale flesh, fat and offal away to be consumed until only gore-streaked and broken bones remained, to be boiled for soup, as nothing was wasted. After a time the town was quiet. The men and women lay sated, their guilt replaced with a belly full of meat. They picked from their teeth the fat horn of their young. This was the bargain, the escape clause from damnation. The body of my enemy to eat, not of my own. Even the preacher had taken a meal. We all knew the right decision had been made. The town would thrive for another 12 years, then a new witch would need to be brought forth, and so life would perpetuate itself for a time, in a way, until the women could make no more babies. Then the graveyard would begin filling anew and all of our sins would be paid for. Though the years have grayed and hardened our hearts, taken from us the vigor of life and twisted its purpose to a strange end. Celebrations and festivals once held, now dusty memory. The times before witches have been forgotten by most. I leave soon for damp earth though, with little regret. The sadness of this place should never subside, but this is our way and this is our home. That first day, when they raised her, stands out to me though. It is something I may never forget.